Okay, so building, I'm going to try to do these brief but thorough. I'm going to go through a custom GPT instance. We're going to go through an assistant. We're going to go through how I engineer some of my prompts to get the best prompt possible. That's kind of an iterative process. And then also we will go through how we could potentially make an entire instance of ChatGPT for our clients, where we can create custom projects and link their custom tools for them, really leaving them with a quality tool that they could use for multiple different purposes. We can kind of compartmentalize the GPTs or assistants, as well as build them an instance that could work across purposes through multiple assistants or multiple GPTs or projects. So first and foremost, for a custom GPT, going to want to clarify the process. Who's going to use it? What problem is it going to solve? What kind of responses does it need to give? Should it follow up in a specific tone or style? Does it need to follow policies, compliance? You know, for this example, this is a blog writer for Manage AI to be able to write in a certain voice and tone representing our brand. And through a few different blogs that we wrote as a team, each one of us wrote some, and then we went through them, made notes, comments, whatever. I took all of that information to create this new GPT and prompt based on that information to provide quality output at scale. The next step in the process after we kind of define, the purpose of the assistant or GPT, we want to gather materials, SOPs, brand guidelines, policies, sample responses, FAQs, any templates or forms that they might have, um, documentation, PDFs, things like that. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to draft the system instructions. There's two different things here that we're working with. You're working with an instruction set or a prompt. And then the next thing is what is called conditional logic, kind of if then when, do this, don't do that, say this, don't say that. I'm going to briefly show you an instance of where I did this to create kind of a master prompt and some conditional logic for the GPT I was just showing you. So what I'll do is I'll tell the instance of ChatGPT what I want it to act as. I want it to act as a prompt expert. Um, basically the priority here is to, no matter what the input is to create a well-branded within these guidelines response, no matter what, no matter what, no matter what. So I started feeding the AI with information. I kind of told it what the company was. I said, I'll give you the brand guidelines and sample blogs and things like that. Then I asked it to do some deep research. I wanted this system to go out and do deep research on the best way to write a quality prompt to get quality content. So it went in, it did a deep research, took a little bit of time, and then it came back with how to do that. And I asked it, "Are you a master prompt writer now?" And it confirmed, "Yes, I am. I know the structure, so on and so forth." So the next thing I gave it was our branding guide. I also, and I believe I used something else, or it might be down in the process a little bit, but I also created kind of a managed AI do's and don'ts on how to write things. So in this instance, I'm only using 2 documents so far. Other instances, you might see a lot. So we created this. We're going to turn that into a PDF. And I started working through a little bit more. I then had it crawl the website. I'm trying to give it as much information and context that I possibly can. Um, where you can do that through their website, through documentation, through any presentation materials they have, conversations, notes, things like that. So I'm not really paying attention to these responses just yet because I want to give it as much information as possible to get the quality output that I'm looking at. And then I downloaded multiple documents, and each one of them had the blogs that each one of us had written, and then Robert's notes and comments off to the side. So I gave it context, telling it, I'm going to give you this with the notes. Make sure that you can read all the information so you can see how we wrote the blogs and then how Robert made recommendations on it. Like, we don't want to make sweeping statements. We don't want to speak for the SMBs or the verticals, so on and so forth. So I then gave it each one of those instances so it could learn from the do's and don'ts. Then I also took a screenshot of the content calendar that also had a little bit of notes about tone and objectives. I seeded that in as well. I locked that in, and then I also gave it some notes from our conversation the other day. As much context as possible. So I asked it, do you feel like you have a strong understanding of our do's and don'ts and everything that we want to write? It says it does. And so here I ask it to help me start creating the GPT instance. So it's writing the prompt for me. You can see it's putting in all our structure, smart brevity. Here's our conditional logic. And I say we set our word count, so it adjusted accordingly. And I will go through it back and forth a few times to really make sure that I'm getting the output that we expect. So now we have our prompt. It tells us the GPT name. I told it to include the conditional logic inside of the prompt so I don't have to copy and paste it separately. It gives me a name. It gives me some suggestions for the description. I'm going to show you how I took all of the information and built this out. First off, I created the GPT. This is what it kind of looks like when you first come in. You can select the model you want to use depending on what you're trying to do. You can select the capabilities of the model, web search, canvas, image generation, so on and so forth. You can also create custom actions through the schema here. I didn't include any of those just yet because I'm just using a blog writer right now. Give it a description, and then here are my instructions. Never use M dashes, the little annoying dashes. Structure and length, content focus, bunch of don'ts. So you can kind of see where the process builds on itself. In here, I gave it some knowledge. I gave it to manage AI, do's and don'ts for brand and voice. And then I also gave it the current branding guide. could upload a bunch more files if I wanted to, but this is what I have for this model right now. Then I hit create. In this case, I'm hitting update. So I then set it to anyone with link. I will then take the blog in question and I will ask it to, assess this blog and make sure that it fits within the parameters of your prompt. Once I'm done with that, I will take that response and I have it assess the output. So what we would do in this case is we would get our customer success person or sales team to reach out to the client and have them start reviewing. And we'll come up with a process for whatever that looks like. And so far, that is how I build a custom GPT.